All right, let's get to the segment.
What is the bare minimum the Huskers could do this year to make you happy? What would be the bare minimum? And the reason I ask this is because I sense that
7-0.
I sense that there is I sense there is an element that is or once greater than what Nebraska's ever been able to do in recent years. And that is 8 wins, 9 wins. Dare I say 10 wins?
Oh, good Lord. If that's going to make people happy, then they're in for a rude awakening.
It seems like in a weird way, and again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just making an observation. The next logical step in the progression is make a bowl game.
Yeah.
Right? That's the next logical step in this progression. But it seems like there's some sentiment that that's not quite enough. That just making a bowl game would not be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the reason why I asked the question.
Travis writes, get to a bowl game. I don't care how you get there. Just get there, LOL. Reggie writes, I'd be happy just getting to a bowl game after so many years out. Adam texts into the show, though, and says 8-4 is the bare minimum at this point for me to be happy with NU signed. Exhausted NU fan. So he says it would take a little bit more than just 6.
Okay.
It would take 8.
Okay. Well, we asked you a poll question on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter page. It's right there at USC 1620. In fact, I'll even hit retweet.
Love poll questions.
My account here.
Bob Bishop?
But what is the bare minimum the Huskers could do in 2024 to make you happy? 54% say a bowl game.
So going 6-6. And that doesn't even give it the result. So in theory, it could be... Because your second question almost implies the first one could be 6-7 with a bowl loss, whereas the next one is a winning season, which could imply 7-6 or certainly 8-5.
Right. And I understand that to some people there's no difference, but yes, you can make mentally, you're just like, okay, I'd just be happy if they make a bowl game, that they're playing a game later in December, something Nebraska hasn't done in a few years.
Yeah.
I get that, 7 and 8 and 9 wins all also do the same thing. But mentally, if you're at the spot where you're just like the first couple of texters, I just want to make a bowl game.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the record is. That's what would be the bare minimum to make you happy. There are those, like the third respondent, who said, no, it's got to be 8 wins.
Yeah.
Or in this case, a winning season. Because I would understand if some people would see Nebraska go 6-6, make a bowl game, lose the bowl game, and end up with a losing record.
Yeah, curses.
Which is another reason why I think, as long as we're going to have the charade that is bowl games versus just letting everybody play a 13th game, then I think there needs to be a higher standard than 6 wins.
Sure, because, if you lose your record is sub 500.
But we also have more bowl games than the market can bear in terms of wins and losses. So we're going to get those types of teams. And then the third option is 8 or more wins. So it's not only got to be a winning season, it's not only got to be a bowl game, but it's got to look pretty respectable. And a jump from where Nebraska's been the last 7 years to 8 wins, that's a pretty decent little jump up.
So it's either going 7-5 and winning, or going 8-4 and then losing the bowl game, or obviously doing better than either of those. But that is, it's not just that it would be an increase over what they have done lately. Mm-hmm. It would double win totals that Nebraska had in 2017, 2018, and 2022. Mm-hmm. It would certainly be an increase by 3 wins, at least 3 wins over every other year, essentially, except for the 3-win seasons. It would be something that they have not done in a long, long time.
And then the fourth option is be in the college football playoff conversation.
If you vote for that and 3.6% of the voters did, you are crazy. If that is going to make you happy, then you are in for a rude awakening. I'm sorry. That is going to be very difficult. Even though, when we unpacked this a little bit on Friday, because it was Sam McEwen, right, who said that is the ceiling. Mm-hmm. But the ceiling implies, when you are really on your best behavior at all times, essentially.
Could I make the argument?
John arguing?
I mean, that's kind of what we do on this show. Can I make the argument? A 7-1 start has Nebraska in the college football playoff conversation.
Okay. Yes, you are right. I guess I was assuming by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because like Mike Riley's second team was in the CFP conversation because they were 7-0. You know, they were in the rankings. They were in the top 10 of a CFP standing.
Yes.
So if you're in the top 10, now again, I would say, that was October. That's not November.
Right. Now 7-1 puts you into November, the first day of November, with a 7-1 record. That's what 7-1 would be.
Whew.
Because the Ohio State game is the last Saturday in October. The UCLA game is on the 2nd of November.
The 8th game.
And again, we're kind of parsing here a little bit. Technically, yes, you're right. Nebraska was in the conversation late in that Mike Riley campaign.
And with this schedule, there'd be a lot of similar discourse of like, yeah, but who have they played?
And so I won't come right out and say you're crazy if you answer this, because a 7-1 record.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective.
A 7-1 record would put Nebraska in the conversation when the serious conversations of playoff begin. Yeah. Yes, we're always talking about the playoff, and this year it's going to be more so because it's a new playoff. It's 12 teams, new leagues, new conferences, different alignments, all that nonsense. But when we actually start, getting to the nuts and bolts and cutting to the chase and saying, all right, here's the teams that are in it, here's the teams that are out of it. Basically, the start of November is when that happens, because the first committee poll, I think, comes out the week before.
Well, yeah, so I'm looking at the 2016 team, actually, and so it looks like the first CFP came out, I believe this was going into week 9. So this was after the loss to Wisconsin is when the first playoff ranking would have come out. They were 10th.
Mm-hmm.
The next week, after they lost by 59 points, they were 19th. But the playoff is different this year. And you know what? The more that you talk the more we talk this out, the more I'm realizing that I've been looking through this through the old lens. Being in the playoff conversation in 2024 and beyond means like being in the top 25 in November, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you're not insane if you would say that. I apologize to those who I called crazy. What are you looking at?
Well, I just Googled when did the first CFP rankings come out. I don't know if they have determined.
If they've announced it. Interesting.
Because all the stories I'm getting are from last year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have determined when they're going to.
Be interesting if they decided to change it up. If they were like, we're not going to play around this year. We're not going to do it as many times as we did.
Let's see. Let's try this. Committee rankings schedule. All right. We do have them right here.
Is it after week 10?
Dates for the 2024 Selection Committee ranking announcements will be they'll be available in late summer. For reference, the dates for the fall of 2023 were as follows. So they haven't announced them yet.
But we'll learn.
But last year the first committee rankings were on Halloween.
Okay. So that is after the 8th game.
Yes.
But for Nebraska this year, that is after week 9, right? Because they all have one idle week before then. They're not going to have 2 yet. The second one doesn't come, I think, until after UCLA.
So they certainly can change this, and they may change this. But, I mean, the possibility is there that after the Ohio State game, we'll have a committee ranking.
And, again, I do need to state this. I was looking at it through the old lens. If you're in the top 25 in November, I think that you are in the conversation.
Yes.
Now, part of that is I'm guesstimating a little bit because I totally don't know, but I guess if somebody says that, they're not totally crazy. Theo writes, need Raiola healthy to have a chance at the bowl. Quarterback depth, crying emoji. And then Max said beating Colorado, 7 wins. So that's a little two-pronged. It's not just the wins, but it's who they beat along those lines.
So would you not be happy with 9 wins and losing
and a loss to Colorado? That seems pretty silly. Venmo Chris texts in to make me happy.
I know that's not what he's implying.
For sure.
But
6 or 7 wins, no blowouts. Offense improves and doesn't cost us almost every game. And 2 wins out of the Ohio State, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Colorado game. So going 2-2 against those teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that 2-2 against those 4 is doable. I think they beat Colorado. They lose to Ohio State. So then can you go 1-1 versus Iowa and Wisconsin? I mean, that's certainly doable.
Yeah.
They've played both of those teams insanely close over the last few years, and they beat Iowa in 2022. It's possible. They just have to finish one of these freaking games for once. Obviously, Iowa will be a road game this year. Wisconsin will be at home. Jed writes, no, the people that voted for this college football playoff being the bare minimum to make them happy are still crazy. They can't be the bare minimum to make them happy. Yeah, that's a wild, wild, wild take. Wild take.
Yeah, but we have those kinds of people in the family.
Oh, for sure.
They exist.
For sure. Yeah, they're not going away anytime soon.
And you know what? And by the way, that's not a knock on Nebraska. Every fan base has.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Oh, we're the Jaguars. We should be competing for the Super Bowl every year.
Nice.
So it's not that unusual to Nebraska. But by the way, 54% say a bowl game is the bare minimum to make them happy. 27% say a winning season. 15% say 8 or more wins. And 4% be in the CFP conversation. Because if you want to look at it, if you want to be practical and look at it this way, there might be some people that could be upset that Nebraska, let's say, starts 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
And that would not put them in the conversation, in my opinion, especially given that schedule.
Because then they'd lose to Ohio State, they'd be 5-3.
And then they could, bounce back and win a couple of games and still end up with 7 wins, go to a bowl, get 8 wins, right? So it's kind of putting an emphasis on the front half of the schedule, saying that we're just tired of losing the games that we're favored to win.
Yeah.
And Nebraska will be favored to win their first 7 games.
Barring a crazy collapse where they were to go like 2-2 early and then the books would just have to adjust, they will be favored.
Just based on the preseason rankings.
Yeah, all the math.
Nebraska will be favored in its first 7 games from anywhere from, probably 2 to 3 points all the way up to whatever the line is for UTEP, which I think is 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Nebraska is going to be a favorite. And I think there's just an element of folks who are just tired of losing the games that Nebraska's supposed to win.
Yeah. There's also, and Jack and I discussed this a month ago at the College World Series on the Championship Monday, but the starting 5-2, there's this fear that people have. And Jack, I thought that he vocalized it fairly well. Like, if you start 5-2, then you lose to Ohio State, then you're suddenly 5-3. And then all of that pressure from last year suddenly is back on the table. People really want them to go 6-1 or 7-0. Because then you don't have to worry about a bowl game or not. For the record, I voted for a winning season for this question. I think the runway at the beginning of the year is very, very nice. But as we talked about at the end of last week, via the math from K Ford, they only have a 1 in 10 chance of actually going 7-0. That's, 10%. It's not that great of a chance. If you had a 10% chance of doing something, you'd be like, can I get better odds somewhere? So I said winning season just because, if you want to take the steps, that's the step. That's the first step before I really start entertaining anything else.
Yeah.
So winning season means they're 7-6, which is either 6-6 and winning a bowl game or 7-5 and a loss in the bowl game or better. I think that would be totally doable and totally fine. And it would, in the words of the song, make me happy.
Just looking back at last year, Nebraska was favored against Iowa, lost. Nebraska was favored at Michigan State, lost. They were, and those are the only 2 games, I say only, but those are the 2 games they lost last year as favorites.
Which ones again? Michigan State and Iowa?
Michigan, they were a 3-point favorite. They lost by 3. Iowa, they were a 2.5-point favorite. They lost by 3.
Wow, they were dogs against Maryland?
Yeah.
By a point?
2.5.
Wow, and Maryland covered. Yikes! Right, because they won by 3. Yeah. Yikes! That's a brutal loss.
2022, Nebraska was favored over Northwestern, lost.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nebraska was favored over Georgia Southern.
This is gonna be bad. This is gonna be bad.
Actually, it's not as bad as you think, only because Nebraska ended up being an underdog in its last 6 games.
Oh, really? So they weren't favored against Illinois or Wisconsin at the end of the season?
Well, remember, Illinois was pretty good at that
point. Right. They were good. Minnesota, though, they weren't favored against Minnesota. Minnesota,
they were a two-touchdown. They were a two-touchdown underdog. Nebraska actually covered that.
I was going to say, they covered that fairly easily.
Yeah. Going back to 2021, Nebraska was favored at Illinois. Lost. Nebraska was...
Were they favored against Michigan State?
Favored at Minnesota. Lost.
Purdue.
Favored against Purdue. Lost.
Iowa. They were favored against Iowa.
Favored against Iowa. Lost.
Yeah. And they were a 3-8 football team, and they were favored against a very good Iowa team in terms of wins and losses.
Nebraska in 2020, favored against Illinois, lost. Illinois reverse covered.
That was bad.
They were a 16.5-point favorite. Nebraska was. They lost by 18.
When I think of Nebraska playing a COVID football game, that is the game that always comes to my mind.
Well, to me, it's the next one.
It's the Minnesota game.
The Minnesota game,
that was bad.
Where they were favored by 9. They lost by 7.
They should have gotten reverse covered, but Minnesota slid down at the very end instead of going into the end zone. Yes, they went down on the knee because
they were just grinding out the rest of the drive. 2019, Nebraska favored at Colorado, lost.
Yeah.
Nebraska favored against Indiana, lost. At home. At Purdue, lost.
Yuck. Gross.
2018, Colorado again, lost. Troy, lost.
Northwestern? Or were they dogs?
They were dogs against Northwestern. So 2.
I don't think we have to keep going back.
Well, the reason I'm just trying to find the last time Nebraska didn't at least lose twice in a season. Because right now, every year they've lost at least 2 games
that they were favored by.
That they were favored.
Oh, the answer is going to be 2016. 2016, they won every game they were favored in, and they lost every game that they were underdogs in.
Actually, my friend, you are wrong.
Is it 2017?
It's 2017, but again, only because Nebraska wasn't favored in its last 7 games. But in 2017, they were favored by 10.5 to Northern Illinois, lost.
Wow.
But they
That's
were only
reasonable reason.
But they were only favored 5 times that season. So Nebraska since 2018, even including the COVID shortened year, at least twice has lost as a favored team.
Yeah.
At least twice.
What's the thing that we do right before the season? Oh, the should win, might win, won't win. Like we have
been wrong.
We have had quite the streak of saying,
including games that we said will win.
Yeah, not even should win, like including Georgia Southern a couple of years ago.
Georgia Southern, Northern Illinois,
Troy.
You may have even had Colorado last year in the will win. But either way, we've had them.
It's been bad
every year.
This year, I think I'm going to have 2 games and will win. I think I'm just going to do 2.
No, there's definitely 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's
Ohio State.
I think there's only 2.
Yeah, it's the bookend of the non-con, right?
Bookend of the non-con.
Yeah. Then you can put up as many as you want. Will win or should win rather, but
sure.
Yeah, I'm only putting 2 in will. Johnny Pig, right? So you're saying this is a Bo Pelini schedule, 7-1 to finish 8-4. That is very much on the table. Very much on the table. You know, I think they could start 7-1 and only win 1 game in the final 4. That's very doable, very realistic. And then it's just about not losing your mind going into the offseason because like you were dreaming bigger things. Don't let your mouth get bigger than your stomach or
your eyes are bigger than your stomach.
Joe in Vegas writes, I'm going to the USC game and I'm calling my shot. Nebraska will be 9-1 going into the Wisconsin game, be ranked in the top 7 in the college football playoff ranking. They'll lose to Ohio State, but a close game. Ohio State 31, Nebraska 28.
You know what that sounds like to me?
List?
I should get some eggs.
Oh, yeah. Joe, we will pelt you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ain't happening. Be pretty fun, though. I would love. Can you imagine how much fun Football Fridays would be on the Grum? Football Fridays?
Right after Formula Fridays.
Not after Formula Fridays.
Do you think
6:01 p.m. Football Friday?
6:01. You guys think a ranking could happen this season?
Get ranked?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, I think they could be ranked. If they start 5-0, I think they'd sneak in.
Yeah, Nebraska's going to be one of those teams that no matter what the schedule looks like, if they start, hell, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. And we don't know because we haven't seen where they're starting. I'm guessing
unranked.
I'm guessing they won't have any votes. Or if they do, they might have like 1 or 2 points.
1 or 2.
But they have a 5-star.
They do have a 5-star. People forget. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah,
I'd say probably very few votes. Less than 5.
Honestly, if Nebraska came out guns a-blazing and
they whooped Colorado's ass,
that they could be ranked by week 3.
Pretty tight.
Tight.
Then people would be calling us around the country. Hey, can you come on, Paul Feinbaum, to talk about Nebraska?
You guys just won the Super Bowl.
I'd be like, sure. Oh, good point, John. I'd be like, sure, Paul, I'll come on your radio
show. You get
show.
invited onto a podcast.
Oh, I'd love to go on a podcast.
Who gets to design the rings if Nebraska beats Colorado?
Let's design them ourselves.
Yeah, they should let us do it.
Yeah.
Let's design them ourselves. How about this idea from YouTube user? Reviewing previous years' will win, should win, could win, etc. would be a great segment. I think we need to do that. That is a good summer topic.
I don't know if I have them.
Oh, really?
I don't know if I have mine.
They have to exist somewhere.
Well, I'm guessing they exist in my prep sheet somewhere, but then it would require me to find out where they were.
I'll search. I'll search YouTube user. Husker says, are you guys punching low just to say I told you so if they don't play well? No, this is what I think.
Whoa, punching low?
We're predicting low. So basically like being,
What are we predicting that's low?
Well, 7 wins. People don't like that. They want to start 7-0.
That's too low.
It's too low.
I didn't make a prediction. The only thing I said was the only 2 games right now that will be in the will win category will be UTEP and Northern Iowa. And honestly, I mean, I don't think anyone with a functioning brain can go bigger than that. Right?
I mean, if somebody else put like Indiana on there, I'm not going to be mad at you. They suck. No, if they put them on will win, I'm not going to be like, you're an idiot.
Right.
Indiana's bad. They have a brand new coach. They suck. Nebraska also sucked.
And like, there might be a goofy loss to somebody who you wouldn't think you would lose to, like a Panther-based team.
No, that is not going to happen. Put it on the list, Nick. I'm going to put it on the list right now.
Okay.
Nebraska is not losing to UNI.
Go Panthers.
By the way,
are you going to that game?
Yes.
For the record,
Absolutely.
using Bill Connolly's SP Plus, Nebraska at this point should be an 8-point favorite.
To Northern Iowa?
No, Indiana. That is not a will win point spread.
Oh, it's not.
No.
What is a will win point spread?
At least 2 scores.
Okay. So 10 points?
In my opinion.
Or 9 points? A touchdown and a field goal?
Maybe
2 touchdowns?
2 touchdowns. At least 2 touchdowns is a will win.
Okay.
Based on, because, an 8-point spread, that's a 1-score game.
Okay. I think that they are going to win that game, but I'm not going to put it in will win.
But remember,
you just said functioning brain.
Well, I did.
Corey says Josh would be miserable if Nebraska went 11-1. He'd rather be right than Nebraska be great. Corey, what the hell are you talking about? Nebraska going 11-1 would be awesome.
But what if you picked a 1-11?
Well, I wouldn't do that because they're going to go at least 7-5 or better.
What if it's 11-1, but the 1 is?
Yeah, but if you say 7-5, they go 11-1.
I love all the
you missed that.
Is this
badly.
A Frost guy still out there getting mad because I was always right about Scott Frost?
I don't know.
Someone didn't get completely defrosted.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Corey, you still frost pilled, dude? If Nebraska was awesome this year, that would be the most fun season we've ever had on the show. It'd be great. It'd be awesome.
I don't know. 2020 was a blast.
No, it was no, John. No, it wasn't. Charles says 11-1 with a loss to Colorado. God, that would be really weird. That would be weird.
Or 11-1 with a loss to the Panthers.
That would be weirder. But no, it's on the list, Nick. It's on the list.
Everyone knows if it's on the list, it's set in stone.
It's set in stone.